Dear students, very good morning to all of you. I hope you all are fine. Today we are going to start our next chapter, chapter number 4 from our book Flamingo, and the name of the chapter is The Rat Trap. So students, here you can see a picture of rat trap also. Now let's start the chapter. The chapter is written by Selma Lagerlöf, who was a Swedish writer. She has a theme in her stories, and the theme is a belief that the essential goodness in a human being can be awakened through understanding and love. The story is set amidst the iron mines of Sweden. The author has beautifully brought out human loneliness and the need to bond with other people also. Now let's discuss about the main characters of this chapter. First of all, we will discuss about the peddler. Peddler is the main character of this chapter. The peddler is a poor man who went around selling small rat traps of wire. Second important character is the crofter. The crofter means a small peasant. He is a simple, trusting person who is robbed by the peddler. Third important character is the iron master, a stern taskmaster. He is a law-abiding person. Next important character is Edla. Edla is the iron master's daughter, who is a kind and compassionate lady. Then people at the ironwork, two persons are there, master blacksmith and his helper. The last main characters are captains. Two captains in this story are there, Niels Olaf and Von Stahler. These captains represent honesty and sincerity, which the peddler accepts at the end. So it was a brief introduction of this chapter about the main characters and about the author of this chapter. Now let's start the chapter. Once upon a time, there was a man who went around selling small rat traps of wire. He made them himself at odd moments from the material he got by begging in the stores or at the big farms. Here author is talking about a person who is a vagabond or is a peddler. He is earning his money by selling small rat traps, and he made these traps from the material he got by begging in stores or at farms. But even so, the business was not specially profitable, so he had to resort to both begging and petty thievery to keep body and soul together. To keep body and soul together means to survive. Even so, his clothes were in rags, his cheeks were sunken, and hunger gleamed in his eyes. His business was not profitable, so he had to do some other works also. He had to resort. Resort means to do bad work. Bad work means like begging or petty thievery. To keep body and soul together means to survive. So he has to do some other works also. He had to beg and steal to survive, and he wore dirty and torn clothes. He was very thin, and his eyes showed that he was hungry. All in all, he lived in a very sad and monotonous life. No one can imagine how sad and monotonous life can appear to such a vagabond who plods means moves slowly, along the road. Left to his own meditations, what one day this man had fallen into a line of thought which really seemed to him entertaining. He had naturally been thinking of his rat traps when suddenly he was struck by the idea. And what was that idea? That the whole world about him, the whole world, with its lands and seas, its cities and villages, was nothing but a big rat trap. It had never existed for any other purpose than to set baits for people. It offered riches and joys, shelters and food, heat and clothing, exactly as the rat trap offered cheese and pork. And as soon as anyone let himself be tempted to touch the bait, it closed in on him, and then everything came to an end. So, in this paragraph, the author is telling us about the life of that vagabond. Means he is living a very sad life. Monotonous means boring. His life is very boring, and a very amusing idea came to his mind that the world was a big rat trap. It offered comforts, joys, like rat trap offered cheese and pork to rats. As soon as a rat was tempted to touch the bait, it trapped him, and everything is finished. This philosophy made the peddler happy, as the world had not treated him right. The world had, of course, never been very kind to him, so it gave him unwanted joy to think ill of it in this way. It became a cherished means favorite pastime of his. During many dreary means boring, ploddings means slow walk. To think of people he knew who had left themselves be caught in the dangerous snare. Snare means trap. and of others who were still circling around the bait. One dark evening, as he was trudging means walk slowly, along the road, he caught sight of a little grey cottage by the roadside, and he knocked on the door to ask shelter for the night. Nor was he refused. Instead of the sore faces which ordinarily met him, the owner, who was an old man without wife or child, was happy to get someone to talk to his loneliness. And one evening the peddler went to a small grey cottage to seek shelter for the night, and to his surprise, the owner, who was an old crofter or small peasant, invited him inside. He was very happy. He was not refused by the owner of that cottage and invited by him in his cottage and helped him because he was also alone. He had no wife or any children. Immediately he put the porridge pot on the fire and gave him supper. So he was very helpful and invited him for supper also. Then he carved off such a big slice from his tobacco roll that it was enough both for the stranger's pipe and his own. Finally, he got out an old pack of cards and played Meolis. It's a card game with his guest until bedtime. The owner of the cottage was very nice. He served food, offered him tobacco, and he also played cards with him. The old man was just as generous with his confidences as with his porridge and tobacco. The guest was informed at once that in his days of prosperity, his host had been a crofter. Crofter means a small peasant at Ramsau Iron Works and had worked on the land. Now that he was no longer able to do day labor, it was his cow which supported him. Yes, that Bossy was extraordinary. She could give milk for the creamery every day, and last month he had received all of 30 kronor in payment. Kronor is Sweden currency. Here the author is telling us about the nature of the crofter or that person who invited him for the shelter. The crofter was very talkative. He informed the peddler that he used to work at the Ramsau Ironwork and he earned 30 kronor by selling his cow's milk. Then the crofter showed him the money also. The stranger must have seemed incredulous. Incredulous means unbelievable. For the old man got up and went to the window, took down a leather pouch which hung on a nail in the very window frame, and picked out 3 wrinkled 10-kroner bills. These he held up before the eyes of his guest, nodding knowingly, and then stuffed them back into the pouch. So the crofter was very innocent and honest. He showed him that 30 kroners also. The next day, both men got up in good season. The crofter was in a hurry to milk his cow, and the other man probably thought he should not stay in bed when the head of the house had gotten up. They left the cottage at the same time. The crofter locked the door and put the key in his pocket. The man with the rat trap said goodbye and thank you, and thereupon each went his own way. Now the crofter went to milk his cow, and the peddler also left his home. But half an hour later, the rat trap peddler stood again before the door. Means he returned to the crofter's house. He did not try to get in. However, he only went to the window, smashed a pane, stuck in his hand, and got hold of the pouch. With the 30 kroner, he took the money and thrust it into his own pocket. Then he hung the leather pouch very carefully back in its place and went away. So students, after an hour later, the peddler went to the window again, took out the 30 kroner and left the house. As he walked along with the money in his pocket, he felt quite pleased with his smartness. He realized, of course, that at first he dared not continue on the public highway, but must turn off the road into the woods. During the first hours, this caused him no difficulty. Later in the day, it became worse. What it was a big and confusing forest which he had gotten into. He tried to be sure to walk in a definite direction. What the paths twisted back and forth so strangely, he walked and walked without coming to the end of the wood, and finally he realized that he had only been walking around in the same part of the forest. All at once he recalled his thoughts about the word and the rat trap. Now his own turn had come. He had left himself be fooled by a bait, and had been caught. The whole forest, with its trunks and branches, its thickets and fallen logs, closed in upon him like an impenetrable prison, from which he could never escape. Now he had stolen the 30 kroners of the peasant, so he avoided the public highway and went into the woods, as he felt that this way would be safer. The peddler was lost in the forest. Soon he realized that he had been fooled by the bait and trapped by the rat trap. So students, next part of this chapter we will discuss tomorrow in our class. Thank you. Have a nice day.